Glad to be back with you once again. I had an opportunity last week to participate in a few meetings around the state of Iowa. We were in session one day last week, and then we took off for the Jewish holiday. We're back now, and we'll have a lot of issues before us. I welcome your questions by email, Facebook, or tweeting. And I'll answer those questions now, as is the usual course of action here. I try to answer a couple questions on camera, and the rest of them we'll answer through mail or email for you. I'd like to go now to the questions. So we have from Ames via Facebook, Chad asks, to me the problem is too much licensed spectrum. More should be unregulated. As for the interference, if the FCC has an issue with a device, it can just ban it. I don't see what the problem is, and this brings up the issue of LightSquared. There's a lot of concern among agriculture, defense, and law enforcement people that LightSquared advancing with the approval of the FCC may interfere with GPS used by defense or by farming or by our law enforcement people. So consequently, we want to make sure that such interference does not in fact exist. And to this point, we're not talking about legislating anything in this area. It's mostly the constitutional responsibility of congressional oversight to make sure that the laws are faithfully carried out. So right now we're trying to get information from the Federal Communications Commission, which has the full authority to make a final decision of what to do or not to do anything. And they're in the process of making that decision, except early on they made a very hasty temporary decision to let LightSquared go ahead. They've backed off of that for reconsideration to some extent. So what we're trying to do is to make sure that the Federal Communications Commission is doing what we call due diligence as they make this decision, and make sure that it doesn't interfere with other important segments of our economy or our national security or our own other governmental bodies. Kimberly from Iowa State asked this question. Please co-sponsor the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act that helps fight slavery. And I will surely do that when we get some things worked out. First of all, the substance of the legislation, basic substance of it, I have no problems with. And I voted for similar legislation when it was first authorized a few years ago. And I want to vote for reauthorization, because who's going to argue with the issue of human trafficking, trafficking in a human, which can lead to slavery, but it leads to abuse of people generally, even if it doesn't involve slavery in the strictest sense of the word. Anyway, what we're trying to work with Senator Leahy, the chairman of the committee, and Chuck Grassley as the ranking member, is to see if we can get a bipartisan bill to move. And the issues that I'm dealing with are some issues where we feel past grantees have not been good caretakers of the money they've received for the programs and the amount of money that is going to be spent. Those are basic issues, and those are quantifiable issues, and frankly can be worked out, I believe, so that I can support the bill and move it along. Because being bipartisan is very, very important in getting a bill through the United States Senate. This week the Senate is working on the issue of China currency and to lay some more strict ground rules of why China is not having their currency float. And when China's currency is tied to the dollar, their currency ends up being an indirect subsidy for their exports, unfairly competing with the United States exports and even our own homegrown products here. So we want to make sure that there's a level playing field for American manufacturing, agriculture, and financial services. And this currency bill will help strengthen the position of our government in hopefully making China let their currency float so it's not that subsidy on their exports. I ask you to tune in next week for another edition of Ask Chuck webcast, and ask for your questions by email, Twitter, or Facebook.